This is our chestnut drying house, or as you call it in the local dialect, a secadou. A secadou is more of a smokehouse than a drying house, and you'd light a fire in the bottom, and the smoke would go up through the floor and dry the chestnuts on the second level. Preserving chestnuts was a vital part of life in Aveyron, as wheat doesn't grow very well here. They can be ground and made into flour, which can help bolster their bread and go into pretty much everything they eat. The building's made out of a very soft type of sandstone called grès, which is quite typical in the region. The roof's made of lauze and the beams are oak with poplar cladding. They didn't tend to use any mortar on these kind of buildings. They just put the stones together with a thin layer of clay to hold them in place, and then pointed them together. That means when the pointing comes out and the roof goes, there's not that much time between then and when the building actually falls down. So you can see with the state of this building, we kind of wanted to address it as soon as possible. The mix I'm using is red sand, earth dug out of the ground just next to the building, which gives it a nice colour, and a white hydraulic lime that's very light. It's called a Tradical PF80. I use it for a lot of stuff because it's really decent. A lot of people locally tend to throw their plaster when they're doing their pointing. I think it makes far too much of a mess, so I tend to do it similar to brick pointing, where I push it in. As long as you get it right to the back of the joint, then you're fine. You might have noticed this is when I shaved my head, and I got such bad sunburn that I had to go to the doctor's, hence why I'm wearing a hat now. Now that the building's solided up, we decided to take down all the stonework above the window as the lintel had rotten through and everything was leaning right back inside the building, which was a bit dangerous. At the same time, we took the first part of the roof down. We actually managed to break very few tiles, which I was pretty chuffed about.
What's this?
Here's that pesky rotten lintel.
Did you put that there?
This is all because of water damage from where the roof had fallen in. Underneath is very similar, and we had to actually cut out the centre beam on the lintel between the doorway, and we replaced it with a reinforced cement one. Here's me cutting it out. We cut the new lintel out of a piece of white oak I had drying in the barn, just giving it a quick sand and then a treatment after that. This mix is for the lintel that's going to go in the doorway, which will just work as a sort of just in case kind of thing. It's just normal sort of cement, sand, gravel, standard mix, but then we filled it full of pigment to make it a little bit close to the stone colour that we've got. Also, my cement mixer very much wants to die, but I won't allow it. I did chuck in a plastic membrane just to protect the sandstone behind for a few reasons. It's an external wall and sandstone is quite porous. The main thing I didn't want to happen was the cement to cause it to hold water, because when sandstone holds water, it just turns back to sand, so that wouldn't be any good for us. The other reason is just obviously how hard the cement's going to dry and how tight it's going to pull. I don't want to cause any risk of fracture. I don't want to cause any problems. Really, in a traditional building, it shouldn't be here. So it's a great tool to use, but you have to be very careful where you're making your joints between the traditional and the modern. Bastard! Get out of there. Move in front, not behind. If anyone's wondering what that was I was chucking inside the lintel, it's just some old broken scaff. It just makes more sense than going to buy rebar. All of this sanding ended up being a little bit pointless because in the end we ripped it all out, because it turns out the beams were full of carpenter ants, as I'm just about to find out.
The box. Well, we think that has to be the perfect place to start, doesn't it? In the Royal Mill. Who's interested. Linda writes, I would like to suggest a movement from Fred Bridges to sea.
By this point I've really got my technique down on removing these tiles without breaking them. Gotta respect it. This colony of ants decided to show up to help me removing some of the tiles. Thanks, ants. Thanks. So that's the roof off, the building secured. From here on out, it's just going to be building it up. So yeah, tune in for part 2. Thanks for all the help that everyone's given me. Much love.